He's got all the makings of a fine NSL player. After working his way through junior ranks with the Breakers and spending 12 months at the Australian Institute of Sport, Mitchell Johnson will crack the big time tonight.
It's my home ground. I'd like to make a name as a young bloke in Australia, sort of hit first grade young sort of thing, and then maybe look to go overseas, but I think it'll be good for me to start here.
The young midfielder knows little of the first round drubbing dished out to Newcastle by the Auckland Kings, but his skipper hopes it may spark some fire in his side.
Hopefully it's fresh in the boys' minds from AFL 5-1 droppings. We've definitely got something and we owe them quite a bit.
Auckland arrived with injury concerns, but United actually dropped some of its big-name players into Sala Massey and Anthony Magnaka in order to turn things around. Meanwhile, the club continues to plan its development of homegrown talent by hitting Hunter schools. Today, the focus was at St Mary's High School Gateshead, who simply wanted to add soccer to its program.
They approached us about it, and as flagship of soccer in the area, I think it's our duty to try and promote and encourage the young boys as much as possible.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. These are the state-of-the-art appliances being built to fight fires in cities and towns throughout New South Wales. Varley Engineering is already midway through a contract to supply 75 urban pumpers for large metropolitan areas. But this week they've won a second order for over 100 regional class appliances. The two contracts combined are worth almost $75 million and plenty of jobs.
At present there's about 90 employed just in the fire truck, or what we call the specialised vehicle division. When this other contract comes online in production the second half of this year, we'd envisage we'll have to be putting on at least another 30 personnel by then.
The Varley design is built almost entirely on site and fitted with a Cummins twin-turbo automatic diesel engine. The local suppliers beat 6 other tenderers to win the project.
I think everybody associated with them's very proud of the fact that, you know, we've designed and built something here locally that before was imported, and it's superior to what's available anywhere else in the world.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Emergency crews were placed on standby next to the runway at Williamtown Airport just before midnight last night. The RAF base control tower had been notified by radio operators in Brisbane. Personnel told the male pilot of this Piper Comanche and his male passenger needed to make an emergency landing.
A light aircraft which had been travelling from Lismore down to Cooranbong had apparently hit a kangaroo down at Cooranbong.
The portside undercarriage had buckled, making any landing for the 29-year-old Central Coast pilot extremely dangerous. For one very tense hour, the pilot and his passenger were forced to fly in a holding pattern over the runway, dumping fuel to minimise risk of an explosion on landing.
Then we laid down a layer of retardant foam on the runway, which reduced the possibility of any sparks.
On touchdown, the plane skidded for 50 metres, a wheel collapsing.
There were no injuries to pilot or passenger. Air Force were absolutely magnificent in the way they handled the emergency.
At Newcastle Airport, 3 flights were affected. Many passengers due to land in Newcastle from Melbourne had to fly to Brisbane and then back, but some weren't worried. The RAF base commander says it's not just Cooranbong runway that's frequently visited by kangaroos. At Williamtown, it's not just the flying variety.
I think this dry weather has probably brought them closer into the feeding areas of the green grass here on the base.
A solution is being sought. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
With just 14 goals in 18 games, everyone knows scoring has been United's problem this season. Drafted into his first top-grade game at just 17, Mitchell Johnson went straight after improving that record. The Kings got a handball call to get a shot from the spot, but Bob Catlin showed who rules the goalmouth. There were still signs Newcastle had to get things together up front, but Andy Roberts had a meeting of the minds and came out with a real headache and a nasty head cut. The defender required 3 stitches but soon returned, patched up and looking for more. Johnson continued his fine debut, pressuring Auckland's defence into a fatal mistake. Young gun Peter Jucknowitz firing home his first for the season, and fans hope he's left some ammo for the rest of the season. If a gunfight is what he wanted, his side got one after the break, with the Kings firing a volley of shots on goal only to come away empty. At times, Auckland looked to be needing target practice, but in the end they began fighting amongst themselves. United had their chances too, but some great defence ensured the home side got the 3 competition points. Conditions gentle, competition as tough as it comes. 150 crews, including some from Western Australia, are competing in the 3rd round of the Australian Surf Rowers League Series at Fingal Beach. And while the swell didn't show, the country's best did. With the Australian titles fast approaching, they can't afford to miss it.
Over the last couple of years it's been shown that the crews that have attended the ASRL Open Surfboat event have all featured very, very prominently at the Australian Championships.
Current Aussie A men champs, Palm Beach, didn't have the best of starts in their first heat today, beaten by North Kirkcurl and Tallabudgera. But its second men's crew had a better first up start. Swansea Belmont 4th in its first hit out for the day, but it's still the best of the local chances in the Blue Ribbon division.
While the water is far from pristine, there was still cause for song and dance today at Islington Park. A more appealing Throsby Creek was showcased to the public today, encouraging people to use the waters for recreation once again.
Oh, it'd be great to have people swimming and fishing here. We'd like to get it back to what it was originally like before the sides were concreted back in the 1930s.
But signs today, there's still a long way to go. That's why Landcare has revived the tradition of the Throsby Carnival, hoping to make the community aware of environmental hazards.
Sedimentation and erosion, and we'd like to see the banks deformalised in certain areas where the concrete's breaking down.
The creek has already been the focus of rehabilitation work over the past 10 years. Today's carnival showing it's clean enough for a few water sports. Landcare hope to make the regatta an annual event again, where dragon boats, people fishing and swimming is a common sight. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Portsea always throws up something big, but no one expected this. The big swell battered and bruised competitors, not to mention Kraft, with plenty of skis coming off second best. Kai Hurst, though, did enough to get home 7th and claim the overall title for the 3rd year in a row.
And I had the biggest smile on my face. To see the surf pumping at 8-10 foot was just amazing.
That's not how Swansea Belmont's Joshua Blair saw the series. Leading after 3 of the 5 races, a disaster in Manly, and 10th yesterday saw him drop to 4th. But already he's focusing on the state and national Ironman titles.
Obviously I'd like to really do well there, and to win an Australian Ironman I think that'd be quite a positive thing after the series.
Blair will head back for his 9th series next year, hoping Hurst backs up for a record-breaking attempt at 4 titles.
If he came back, I think none of the guys would give it to him easy.
Hurst's Tugun clubmate Stephen King wrapped up 2nd to make it a double for the Gold Coast club, while Reen Corbett only had to finish yesterday to wrap up the women's crown. A job easier said than done, given the pounding everyone copped.
Or have had.
Yesterday's good-natured confrontation with opposition leader Kim Beazley was the latest in years of protests from residents living near the RAF Saltash bombing range. Locals say aircraft noise is unbearable and getting worse.
I have never heard anything like this in 20 years. They're a law unto themselves.
In fact, some people are so upset they're willing to sabotage the flights. In not the first time, it's been revealed on 2 consecutive days last week. People trespassed onto the outskirts of the range and released basic helium balloons such as this, some of them with tabs of gunpowder attached.
That a balloon could be caught up and taken down one of the intakes, and the results could be catastrophic.
The RAF base commander fears a crash or even losing a pilot. Those responsible for releasing the balloons have evaded police.
I think the Saltash people have got a right to complain about the fact that there is noise, but My point to that is that the Saltash weapons range has been there for 60 years, and the majority of residents in the Saltash area have moved there subsequent to the range being established.
The base is Newcastle's single biggest employer, with a workforce of 2,500 people.
We pump into the local community upwards of $120 million in wages, of which probably $30 or $40 million of that's discretionary spending.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Standing room only at Newcastle Council chambers last night as residents crammed in to voice their concerns. At issue, GrainCorp's application to increase truck movements in Carrington.
There's a lot of very tired people that don't get very much sleep. We can't even have a normal quality of life with watching TV, for example. You can't talk on the phone. You know, the truck noise is just phenomenal.
The company wants to move a further 75,000 tonnes of grain a year and be permitted to unload it on weekends and after hours. GrainCorp is currently restricted to weekdays 9 to 5, which it says results in long truck queues and the potential for lost business. But residents are asking council not to consider the application until a heavy vehicle bypass is constructed, running along Elizabeth and Parker Streets, then on to Darling Street. Council appeared to agree, voting to defer its decision until such time, even though Newcastle Lord Mayor John Tate signalled a bypass may not be complete until the end of 2002. GrainCorp says Council's deferred decision is disappointing at a time when the East-West Basin is trying to attract business from industries other than coal.
The emphasis at the moment is to try and bring more business through the port rather than detract from it or send it to other ports such as Port Kembla or Brisbane.
Catherine Turner, NBN News.
Having come so far and 2/3 of the trip out of the way, it is difficult not to start to get a bit excited, but I've still got a long way to go in this journey, and I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that we'll be able to get to the finish line in one piece.
this is what it takes to make an award-winning little Aussie icon.
Constantly aware of changing ideas and tastes and improving your recipes all the time.
But the true test is in the taste buds, and this is where the Federation Pie Company is the real winner.
If they don't enjoy it, they won't come back and buy another one, so we have to keep providing the product that they like.
The Cardiff-based business is no stranger to success, but this is the first time its products have been judged at the Royal Easter Show's bread, cake and pie competition, and it's a win they're more than happy to walk away with.
I think it's good for the business. It helps promote the business, and the staff like to get involved, and it gives them a boost when something good like this happens.
And with such a tasty secret recipe, the company will be cooking up a storm in preparation for the next test, or even just the next customer. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
It means that we've now, as far as the public's concerned, the yachting fraternity, we've then taken the vessel out of service, and we can no longer do what we're chartered to do, and that's save lives at sea.
It's only natural that nerves are playing a role in the lead-up to Sunday night's clash for Newcastle, especially for some of the younger players. But it's their attitude that's proving infectious within the side.
The enthusiasm they add to a training run is probably getting me more enthused.
Winger Justin Ryder is one who gets a chance to show he wants to be more than just a backup for the top grade.
Got to take a game at a time and take the opportunities, and if I do that and play well, then hopefully I'll stay there for most of the year.
He's actually facing off against former teammate Lenny Beckett. Now an Eagle, Beckett is about to play at Marathon Stadium for the first time since leaving Newcastle.
Yeah, the crowd will be intimidating, but I'll try not to let it put me off my game.
Prop Josh Perry made an impression in his few first-grade appearances last season, but hopes to really make his mark this year.
Pretty excited actually. Me and Marco Millie in the Australian team, and I'm looking forward to taking him in the front row.
Perry's pre-season form has impressed many, and now rated as the fittest he's ever been, the young prop wants to be a permanent addition to the side.
Yeah, that's it. I want to let everyone know that I want to be there all year, so have a big one.
Match kickoff is 6 o'clock Sunday with NBN to show the game after the movie.
Deregulation. It's become a rude word in the industry. Farmers are now having to sell their milk to supermarkets for as little as 32 cents per litre. That's left a lot of dairy farmers out of pocket and unable to afford a life on the land. However, a two-day dairy expo which started at Tocal Agricultural College today aims to change that.
There are farmers out there that are experiencing difficulty, and we want to provide them with the services to help them become more profitable.
That's music to the ears of the Hunter's 260 dairy farmers who are starting to realise that they need to keep up with technology rather than turn sour on the industry.
I think the only way is to try and increase your production. Have you heard? The companies have got us locked into low prices for a few years because we're tied up with contracts with the supermarkets. So until they rise, we're just the only way you can increase your income is to increase your production.
The expo has given farmers a chance to access free consultation with dairy experts and encouragement to keep milking the market until prices improve.
It's just some way to sort of survive, the next 12 months or so until hopefully we can get a price rise.
Adam Harper, NBN News. You'd think a Canadian trying to teach Australians to play ice hockey would be akin to us trying to teach them cricket. But one of Canada's most renowned ice hockey coaches, Kelly Lovering, is doing just that. He believes that Australia has the skill to make an international name for itself.
Oh, you're very good. Australia is now certainly the measuring stick for the what would you say the bottom 30 teams in the world competition. They would all love to beat Australia, and the other top 20 teams are very much afraid that we're going to beat them.
Last night, Kelly coached Newcastle's Open A's, the highest level of players in the Hunter. And from what he saw, he believes that Newcastle may even make the Super League level of competition next year.
All their players are fresh and new and have a passion for the game, which you must have to play hockey. They have no bad habits.
That enthusiasm will be put to the test in March when Newcastle teams will play against Sydney. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Off-season surgery and the birth of his first child delayed Matt Parsons' return to top-flight football this year. He's the first to admit his fitness isn't great, but with Troy Fletcher injured, Coach Hagan called him in.
Matty might have had to play another game in First Division, but the circumstances have probably brought that forward a week.
His mere presence, though, will be as big an asset as his frame.
He's a first-grade calibre player, and we need as many good calibre players on the park as we can at the moment.
There is no change to the back line that will meet the Roosters, with winger Justin Ryder cleared of any serious shoulder damage, while second rower Ben Kennedy moves into the starting side and is looking forward to going head-to-head with the likes of Kangaroo teammate Brian Fletcher.
When you're playing quality opposition and quality players in your own position, you want to get over the top of them.
But if it's motivation the side needs, the memory of the semi-final capitulation in their last meeting will stir plenty of emotion.
We've gone down there twice and had a pretty good lead on them both times, and they've come back and beat us, and it's a pretty hard thing to swallow.
As for the first game crowd figure of 18,000, even the CEO was left wondering, given the stadium looked near full.
Yeah, it surprised me a little, I must admit. Seems to be this whole adage that we dub the figures so we don't have to pay anything to the NRL or the ARL, and that's not the case. We keep the total gates.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Third time lucky is a phrase Stevie Hughes will be hoping rings true on Friday night. The boxer they call Billy has had 2 attempts at a state title and even hung up his gloves after the second. But a shot at the vacant state junior lightweight crown was just too good to pass up.
Definitely an offer I couldn't refuse. The hardest problem was coming down in weight. I've come down from just over 68 kilo and I'm sitting just under 60 now.
Fighting down a weight division, he's already won a comeback bout and has kept to a stricter training regime. In the opposing corner will be Sydney boxer Alex Waimara, a man apparently no stranger to disqualification, but that doesn't worry Hughes.
Not at all, no. If he wants to bung that on, then I'll just let him do whatever he wants to do, and it's just a matter of me keeping me composure and not falling into his tactics as well.
The title fight will be in enemy territory at Hornsby RSL. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Offences have been committed. These 2 vehicles here are blocking access to this road.
Can you please explain to me why that vehicle is blocking it and it's the other side of the gate post?
Yeah, I'm not going to enter into debate with you.
The latest attempts to disrupt RAF bomb training at the Saltash Range saw residents face-to-face with police today. Officers guarded one side of the gate, with residents on the other, trying to stop personnel entering the range to set up for training. The big police turnout drawing criticism.
There's a lot of houses been broken into in Saltash recently, probably right now, and the police never seem to show up.
As you can see, sir, you've attracted some resources here.
Approximately 22 police, basically against Dad's army.
We're here to prevent a breach of the peace, and if this matter was to escalate for whatever reason, we just want to make sure that we have the resources here to deal with it.
Unbeknown to residents, the RAF were already inside the range via a different entrance. Protesters hoping their complaints will again be a political issue.
They're living with 4 FA-18s flying up to 8.5 hours a day. No one can live with that.
People were told when they bought the land that the range was going to be closed, it was going to be moved, that the new aeroplane was going to be quiet, all these sorts of things. So people were given hope that things were going to get better, and they didn't get better. In fact, it got worse.
The use of the range is under review. However, I don't think things have changed in recent times to make anything worse.
Residents are demanding the federal government conduct an environmental impact study on the range. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News. "17-year-old Rob Cabell is one of 8 apprentice aviation engineers who've this week started 4 years of training on the job with Impulse Airlines.
My father was brought up in aviation, so I've been brought up in aviation, and it's just turned out like this.
2 other new appointments on the course are employed by Hunter Aerospace, a subsidiary of British Aerospace. Those apprentices training to keep the RAF's new fleet of Hawk lead-in fighters flying.
I've loved aircraft since I was young, so I reckon it's the perfect job for me.
Previously, students would have had to have travelled to Sydney.
With this course, this enables to show the nation that we are now entering into a new technological age, and if we can do aero skills here in the Hunter, we can put our youth into forward-looking industries.
When finished, Impulse apprentices will maintain a fleet of 13 Beech 1900 class aircraft and 8 new Boeing 717 jets. They'll work out of the carrier's National Engineering and Maintenance Facility at Williamtown. Another 28 apprentices start with both companies next year. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Although it's still in its early stages, researchers at Newcastle University believe they may have made a breakthrough. They've found evidence that people with reading difficulties such as dyslexia have a distinct metabolic profile that may indicate the body is trying to fight off a disease or infection.
What we think is that instead of reading difficulties being purely an educational problem, we think that there's an underlying molecular basis to it.
61 people who suffer from chronic fatigue took part in the initial study and were divided into 2 groups, those who used a coloured lens to improve their reading and those who didn't.
The group that show a response to the lenses have a slightly different biochemistry from the other group, and we're trying to interpret that and eventually, when we do a larger study, find ways of improving that and finding the cause.
Just how this is linked to chronic fatigue syndrome is yet to be determined. Coloured lenses have been used to help people with dyslexia since 1986. Damien O'Dwyer is just one of the people who took part in the study.
My writing ability has picked up. My reading ability has improved as well, and I've been able to assimilate a lot more information.
A larger study involving more people is now planned. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Hey, first one up, Bo Young. Current world champion. pretty well out.